The ketogenic or a carnivore diet? Why would you do one or the other? What's the difference? Let's talk about it. Hey, what's shaking bacon? My name is Bruno Panucci. I hope you're doing well. So I've been doing this carnivore diet for quite a while now. I'm down a substantial amount of weight and I'm still on this carnivore journey. Now, like a lot of people who have turned to carnivore, I did keto before, but I did it for a very short amount of time and it didn't work at all for me. But before we get into that, if you can, give the video a thumbs up and leave a comment. I really appreciate it. Hit that little bell notification at the bottom. It really helps with the YouTube algorithms. It really helps support the channel and it helps me do what I'm doing. So first, let's get into the difference between a keto and a carnivore diet. A ketogenic diet, it's actually a very old diet. It's been around for quite a while. The first time I first heard about it was in the early 2000s because I worked in a naturopathic office. One of my family members at the time had seizures and the doctor put him on a ketogenic diet because they were petit mal seizures. So he couldn't have any sugar. He could have some carbohydrates, but anything that was too high in sugar, naturally, he just couldn't eat. And I remember thinking, wow, that's amazing. So you just knock sugar out of your diet and it helps with these petit mal seizures. I was fascinated by that. I tried it years later and I just couldn't manage it. So a ketogenic diet is a 80% fat-based diet, 20% protein, and another 20 to 50 grams of carbs through the day. Now, the nice thing about a ketogenic diet is it's flexible for people. So when people go to a ketogenic diet off a standard American diet, like almost any diet, any way of eating off a standard American diet, you're gonna feel better. Typically, you're having more natural, real foods and less processed foods, but that's changed in the last 10 years with keto. It's a lot easier to get your hands on keto recipes out there, and it's a lot easier to get restaurant food that's keto friendly. So lots of that food is still processed, and it's not good. It's like a lesser evil, but it's still not a good thing to have if it's processed. But the thing that works with people on a keto diet is you can have alcohol still. So you can still have a little bit of wine, especially if it's really low sugar wine. So you can still have olive oil, you can still have coconut oil, and those things are gonna help you lose weight. Lots of people stick with butter. So you can still have coffee and put your butter in your coffee with a little bit of salt, and people really love that. I'm not a coffee drinker. I love the smell of coffee, but man, I just do not like the flavor. But keto, with those restrictions, still helps people to feel better. It gets rid of a lot of inflammation. Most people talk about the mental clarity benefits that they get doing a ketogenic diet because the body naturally runs really well on fat, and it takes sometimes a little bit of time to become fat adapted. And once you get there, you're kind of coasting on a ketogenic diet, and people get a lot of weight loss with that, sometimes rather rapidly. But the one thing that can do if you're not exercising with weights is you can become a bit of a skinny fat person doing that. I see that with people who do a ketogenic diet who have lost a lot of weight, and it's great. They have lost a lot, but they've also lost a lot of muscle and lean mass. So I think it's fine if you're doing a ketogenic diet. It's a low protein diet, low to moderate protein diet, but just make sure you're getting activity. Now, what type of activity? You have to make sure that you're actually doing weight resistance and weight bearing activity. You're not gonna get big and bulky, and you definitely don't have a diet that's gonna support that. But why do people often switch from a ketogenic to a carnivore diet? Because you mentioned a carnivore diet to most people out there and they're like, okay, that is the most screwed up thing I've ever heard. And maybe they'll be really polite to you and go, oh, and if you're lucky, maybe you'll just get a bit of an eye roll. And you could tell they're thinking, this is so stupid, as they look at you and they're just not listening to a word you're saying. And you can try and convince them of all the benefits, but they just don't really care because they think it's so unhealthy because so many people have been conditioned to believe that meat is unhealthy. You can see that we know better now. It's the processed seed oils, more importantly, the cooked processed seed oils that are carcinogenic and damaging to the body. When people use saturated animal fat on their carnivore diet, and that's all they're getting for their fats, they tend to feel even better than what they were doing when they were doing keto before. So it improves your day-to-day quality of life even more. Keto gets you so far, and then carnivore gets you to that whole other level. And lots of people are kind of curious after they've been doing keto for a while and they've heard about this carnivore thing and how great so many people feel when they do carnivore, they're intrigued and they're like, I'll give it a shot for a few weeks. And then what happens at the end of the few weeks, they feel even better because now they've cut out all those artificial sweeteners that you can have on a ketogenic diet. And then they notice they feel better and they stick with it a while longer. And before you know it, they've been doing it for months to years because protein isn't a great fuel source, but it offers the building blocks to heal. And when you want to heal after weight training or physical activity, you want to have that protein sitting there to help you with that. And typically on a carnivore diet, it means you can have more protein in your day. On both of these diets, you're cutting out carbohydrates as your main fuel source. The ketogenic diet has a little bit of carbs in there, and the carnivore diet's goal is to have no sweet flavors and no carbohydrates whatsoever, as much as you can help it. There might be trace amounts in the food you eat, but they're trace amounts, almost to the point sometimes where they don't even show up on a nutrition label. So if you're doing things like CrossFit or weight training, a version of carnivore with a little bit more protein can really help your game because it'll help you put on more lean mass and muscle. So when I went from a carnivore to a high fat version of carnivore, I actually put on weight, and I was sticking with the same macros a ketogenic diet offers. Now, I wasn't too worried because some of that was lean mass and another 10 pounds of it came off rather quickly. So I initially put on 23 pounds, lost 10, and of the 13 pounds that was left, something like 7 pounds of that was lean mass. So really, I only put on a few pounds of fat, and that came off after the next few months of doing this high fat version of carnivore. I'm doing an even higher fat version of carnivore right now, and I'm going through that same hurdle of the weight gain, and now it's starting to come off just a little bit. And now that it's coming off with some exercise and weight training and walking, what's happening is it's starting to go down. And hopefully my insulin's getting a little bit better while I'm going through this process. But what's also happening is my weight's going down. Hopefully my lean mass is maintaining or going up because I'm doing weight training. I don't believe in doing a low protein diet or even a moderate protein diet without weight resistance exercise. You will, I don't care what anyone says, what studies say this, you will lose lean mass when you lose weight. That's why you see so many skinny fat ketogenic people. I'm not trying to insult those people, but that's often what happens when you do a ketogenic diet and you're doing low to moderate protein and not weight training. I've had the real life experience. And if you look, lots of other people who've lost a lot of weight who pay attention to this will tell you they've lost muscle mass and lean mass when they've lost weight if they weren't weight training. I honestly don't care what some 6, 8, or 10 week study says that was done on mice, or even athletes that talks about how they've maintained their lean mass. You and I aren't athletes. We're not going to maintain our lean mass unless we exercise. And those athletes exercise way more in a day than most of us do in a week. We have to keep this in perspective. If they were to do a study on people who were doing a ketogenic or high fat version of carnivore, and they lost a lot of weight and they were just regular day-to-day people, and we found out that they maintain their lean mass, I'd be a little bit more inclined to believe that. But that's not showing what happens when someone loses 100 pounds or 75 pounds. That shows what's happening over a few weeks when someone might lose 20 pounds or 30 pounds at best. A lot of that's going to be water weight just to begin with anyway. So those numbers are skewed and we can't always rely on those numbers. So ultimately, you have to decide what's better for you. If you're happy doing a ketogenic diet, and maybe the reason is just that you can have alcohol and it's a little more flexible for you, then if it's working for you, I highly recommend you stick with that. But if you're at the point where maybe you have to work on some health problems, or maybe you just want to increase your energy levels through the day and you want to try a carnivore diet, maybe that's the way to go. And you're going to have to cut out those artificial sweeteners on this carnivore diet, because the goal of a carnivore diet is to only have animal products and to cut out all sweet flavors, artificial or not. And you got to ask yourself, and here's where some tough love is coming in, so be forgiving with me. If alcohol is that much of a game changer for you that you have to have your beer or your glass of wine at the end of the day, there might be something else going on that we need. But if you just want to address your weight for now and the way you feel day to day, no issues. I want you to take care. I really appreciate you watching this video. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you appreciated this information. So thanks a lot, take care, and I hope you found this information useful.